Well, I tell you what I'll do. I think I can make a little exception and give you an advance on your allowance. How much do you need?
Never mind, Pop. That's okay.
No, don't worry about it. You can pay me back.
Honest, Pop, I don't want it.
What's the matter with you, David? You got rocks in your head?
You let David handle his own financial affairs.
I sure wouldn't let him handle mine, boy.
When The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet premiered in 1952, the post-war suburban exodus and baby boom were well underway. More and more Americans purchased televisions, tuning in to watch as Ozzie, Harriet, David, and Ricky grew up in our very own homes. This is the story of how the remarkable series became the longest-running and most influential situation comedy in the history of network television. Oswald Nelson was born a little more than 100 years ago to the husband and wife singing duo Nelson and Nelson. Raised in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, by the time he was 5, Ozzie, along with his brother Alfred, performed singing sketches between acts of his parents' shows. Ozzie was an athletic boy and a good student. He won a scholarship to Rutgers University in 1924, playing 3 seasons of varsity football even though he weighed a mere 131 pounds. While in law school, despite his inability to read music, Ozzie supported himself and his family by putting his own big band together. In fact, the Ozzie Nelson Orchestra was so successful, upon graduating from law school, Ozzie decided to attend to his burgeoning career in entertainment. Meanwhile, the future Harriet Nelson was growing up in Des Moines, Iowa. Peggy Louise Snyder was born on July 18, 1909, to professional actor parents. Roy Snyder, whose stage name was Roy E. Hilliard, was an actor and director for stock theater companies in the Midwest. It was at one of these theater companies that Roy met and fell in love with a young actress named Hazel Dell McNutt. Before long, the two were married and soon had a family. Peggy spent her childhood either on the road performing with her parents, at home with her aunt and grandmother, or at the Sisters of St. Agnes Academy in Kansas City. When her parents separated in 1925, Peggy moved with her mother to New York City, where she took acting and dance lessons, along with the stage name Harriet Hilliard. Harriet appeared in her first Broadway play that same year and landed a limited engagement as a specialty dancer at the Hollywood Restaurant. At the last minute on New Year's Eve, 1931, Harriet was asked to fill in for Master of Ceremonies Nils T. Granlund at the Grand Ballroom of the Edison Hotel. Also booked to provide music that night was none other than the Ozzie Nelson Orchestra. Ozzie was in awe of young Harriet's poise and quiet self-assurance, and within 4 months, he had hired Harriet to sing with him, just as his parents had done years earlier, making Harriet Hilliard the first female singer in any big band. While performing across the country, Ozzie Nelson and Harriet Hilliard fell in love. Ozzie was as clean-cut as he appeared. He never touched alcohol and didn't tolerate heavy drinking or smoking. Harriet, on the other hand, was a longtime smoker and liked the occasional drink before dinner. Still, somehow these two were perfect for each other. Ozzie and Harriet were married on October 8, 1935, at the home of Ozzie's mother in Hackensack, and timing, as they say, was everything. 1 week after the wedding, Harriet left for Hollywood to make her silver screen debut in the low-budget film 2 O'Clock Courage. Instead, Harriet was cast as the replacement for Irene Dunne in the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers musical Follow the Fleet, which became a classic for RKO. Back in New York on October 24, 1936, Ozzie and Harriet welcomed a new addition to the Nelson family when David Ozzie Nelson was born. A few months later, Ozzie's trumpet player Holly Humphreys, an amateur cameraman, shot Ozzie and David in what amounts to the family's first foray into situational comedy. In the short film Doing Right by David, Ozzie enlists a doctor with a miracle cure for baby David's baldness. On May 8, 1940, Ozzie and Harriet celebrated the birth of their second son, Eric Hilliard Nelson, better known to the Nelsons and the world as the irrepressible Ricky. At a very early age, little Ricky had a unique perspective on show business, often spending countless hours listening to classical music from beneath the family's radio console. For 3 seasons, Ozzie, Harriet, and the band continued to enjoy success as they appeared on Red Skelton's radio show, The Raleigh Cigarette Program. The husband and wife duo's comedic talents were given a workout as they performed opposite Skelton in several on-air sketches. Harriet, in particular, excelled as the straight man to Skelton's wide range of characters. When Skelton received his draft notice in 1944, the Raleigh cigarette program was discontinued, and Ozzie and Harriet were once again on tour with the orchestra. But Ozzie's dream was to find another radio show on which he and Harriet could appear as themselves, rather than the characters for which they'd previously become known. The search didn't last long. On the couple's 9th wedding anniversary, October 8, 1944, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet aired before a coast-to-coast audience. For 5 seasons, the characters of David and Little Ricky were played by actors employed by Ozzie. But despite Ozzie's desire to keep his sons out of show business, the young Nelson brothers had undoubtedly inherited their parents' talent for performing. Their father auditioned the two in front of a live audience, with Ricky often stealing the show. And finally, on February 20th, 1949, David and Ricky Nelson began playing themselves on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and would continue to do so for the next 17 years. Meanwhile, Ozzie, with his brother Don, was writing a screenplay for the Nelsons' screen debut, and in 1951, he sold the script to Universal Pictures. The feature-length film, Here Come the Nelsons, would give American audiences their first look at the foursome that would define the all-American family. Ozzie leveraged the success of Here Come the Nelsons to ink a 10-year deal with the ABC network to produce, write, and direct the televised version of their radio show. Ozzie had complete creative control. Up to that time, no one person had ever had as much control over a single project for so long, and no one has since. But to Ozzie, the show meant much more than simply entertaining American audiences. It meant educating them on current issues, trends, and an unprecedented sense of clean-cut morality. In fact, behind the scenes, Ozzie was quick to remind the cast and crew, especially David and Ricky, of ABC's strict morals clause. Each of them represented not only the family and the show, but all of America. The Russian government would even eventually begin viewing episodes of the show because they saw it as their best look at American culture.
We're looking for some Tutti Frutti ice cream.
Well, if you don't find any here, I guess we must be all out of it. I'll have to make a note of that.
Oh, isn't there any place in this town where a man can buy Tutti Frutti ice cream?
We'll have some in tomorrow.
We have got to have it tonight.
On October 3rd, 1952, Ozzie's hard work, from leading the Ozzie Nelson Orchestra to the radio show, a feature film, and now a television program, finally paid off when The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet premiered to a captivated America. The series would air on ABC for 14 years, becoming the longest-running comedy series in America, until Fox's The Simpsons finally surpassed it in 2004. But on that Friday night in 1952, Ozzie, Harriet, David, and Ricky were only at the beginning, looking into their bright, unknown future in entertainment and American history.
Well, we hope you enjoyed reminiscing with us.